Okay. Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of Adoption Happy Hour brought to you by NAP. We are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents, which is our mission to unify the adoption community and elevate our diverse voices by promoting dialogue, understanding, and healing through education, awareness, and connection. I am Jennifer Falsing. I am the co-founder and current president of NAP, and I am joined with executive board member Beth Story as our co-host tonight. Our typical host is Marcy Keithley, but she's off playing in Florida for her birthday. So we were happy to step in and for her tonight. It's wonderful to have each of you with us here. If you haven't already, please say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're from. Let us know, where, if you're an adoptee, an NPE, donor conceived, or whatever your situation is that you're comfortable sharing, please let us know in the chat. We do have a couple housekeeping items that we're going to do, and then we will welcome the DNA Angels to happy hour. So, as I said, this is a public meeting. There's no guarantee that information or identity is confidential. The first part of this event will be recorded and will be shared in our private happy hour Facebook book group and also on our YouTube channel. Please remain on mute. Raise your hand on screen or with the virtual hand to be recognized. You can post any questions or comments in the chat. If there's something you want asked and you don't want to ask it yourself, please feel free to direct message the question to someone. If you are experiencing a serious mental health event or suicidal thought, please contact a licensed professional or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988.
Okay, I'm going to talk for just a moment about our regular programming. We have happy hour the first and the third Friday of each month. We have a Putting Yourself Together After Reunion support group that meets once a month with Dr. Joyce, and I believe it's the 13th or the 14th, Jennifer?
13th.
Okay, 13th will be coming up very soon. Registration is already out for that. We have a great time at those meetings just talking about all things reunion related. And Dr. Joyce is a fabulous resource for us. Another one of our groups is First Families, Birth Parents Journeying Together with Amy Seek and Amber Jimerson. They will be meeting on February 8th. Registration is open for that as well. And then we close out each month with Self-Love Essentials for the Adoption Constellation with Danielle Gaudet. Mindful exercises and meditation for an inner healing journey. And again, another really, really good program. You can basically find some NAP-related program every week, depending on how the days fall. Every week, each month, we have something going on for you. And then we are going to talk for a moment or two or three. Okay, let's see, I want to try to hide this thing. If I can. There it was, hide floating, just a second. There, get this out of the way. Okay, in case you may not know exactly what untangling our roots is, we talk about this a lot, but we need to remember we have new people all the time. So a conference to unite the NPE, adoption, and assisted reproduction communities. And in case you're not aware of what NPE means, non-paternal event is the definition we normally use for that. We are planning our second fabulous, huge conference. It will be a Thursday through Sunday event, April 25th through the 28th at the Denver Hyatt Regency. Okay. It is a jam-packed time. There will be entertainment. We feed you almost every meal as part of your ticket. 50 plus speakers doing creative workshops, panels, speaker sessions, plenary speaker, a plenary panel, and a keynote speaker. And one of our new features this time, small affinity support groups, brand new thing that we're bringing on. This particular panel will feature each of our communities, and each of our communities is featured throughout. And focused on throughout the entire event. I just wanted to let you know of a few people that will be familiar names to many of you here at NAP. Barbara Robertson and Jeanette Yoff will be each presenting a session, and the fabulous Brian Stanton will be the MC for the entire conference. Others from our community will feature them, in the next couple of weeks as we continue to talk about this. Okay, the beautiful facility, Hyatt Regency. We have secured a great rate for the rooms. Rooms are $225 plus normally, but you can have a king room for $160. It also has a sofa bed, a 2-queen room for $175. I will be dropping links into the chat so that you can get to all of these different things. T-shirts, okay? We have one more design coming, but these are t-shirts that you can order. And the cool thing is that you can order them before the summit, and then you will have it to wear. Of course, you can order them anytime, before, during, and after, but it's neat to be able to do that ahead of time and have one there. So one more is going to be coming, and I'll give you a hint. It's going to have a tree as part of the design. Probably in the next 2 weeks, we'll have that one up. So Untangling Our Roots, Denver, April 25th to the 28th. It will be great, and you will not want to miss it. And that's it for me.
All right. Well, thank you, Beth. And I am going to switch here to speaker view. So I just want to introduce everyone to the DNA Angels. I hope you've all heard of them before. If not, you are going to be in for a treat tonight. The organization was founded in 2019. It has grown and evolved from a labor of love venture, co-founded with several fellow search angels, to a full-fledged 501c3 nonprofit that has currently solved over 5,000 cases. We are so happy to have with us tonight Laura Olmsted, founder and executive director, Amy Rose Haynes, associate director and lead genetic genealogist, Kate Penny Howard, genetic genealogist and director of human resources, and Jennifer Scheibens, genetic genealogist and board secretary. Each of them are going to do their own little individual presentations, so let's get going right away. And then after they do all their presentations, we'll stop the recording and we will open up the Q&A. So with that, welcome, and whichever one of you wants to go first.
That's me. Let's see if I can share my screen. I can. There we go. Hello, everybody. We are really very excited and happy to be here. My name is Laura Olmsted. I'm the founder and executive director of DNA Angels, including a lead genetic genealogist. We have many titles around here and we fit many roles. We are so happy to be here. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about DNA Angels. DNA Angels, as Jen said, is a nonprofit organization with the mission of helping other people who are searching to identify their biological parent. We were founded in 2019 after I made a personal discovery. I took a DNA test and found out my dad wasn't my dad. And that led me to learning who he was and how to figure out who he was and identify him. One thing led to another, and we just started reaching out and trying to help other people that found themselves in a similar situation. We never charge to find a biological parent because we feel like it is your God-given right to know who you come from. We use skilled genetic genealogists and search angels. We do strive to be very confidential in our work. We're compassionate, and over 80% of our cases are solved in the very first month or less. And just to break that down a little bit more, when we take in a client, we do what we call an intake form, right? One of our volunteers that is not a genetic genealogist or a search angel, they volunteer to just talk to the clients as they come in, get their story, find out if they've tested at Ancestry and who they're looking for. And then as soon as they're done, they put that client in a form for us on Google Sheets. And so we have a waiting list, and all of our angels have access to that. And those cases normally get assigned within 24 hours of the intake process being completed. And then within 24 hours, just in the year 2023, we solved 34% of the cases in 1 day or less. And then an additional 31% we solved in a week or less, and then 16% in a month or less. So when you add those three columns up, over 80% of our cases are solved in less than a month. We do have we call it the spare change, the leftovers, where it's simply just not an easy solve, and it takes us a little bit longer to solve those, but we never leave a client behind. We have a special team that we call our long-term team, and if that case doesn't get solved in a month or two, we're going to turn that case over to a long-term team who can offer more assistance and take our action plan that we've created to try and get closer to the answer. Now, we do serve more than just the NPE typical DNA surprise community. We serve adoptees, donor conceived people, and NPEs, and anybody in the middle that potentially they just never knew who their dad was. They were raised by their mom. Mom never gave them a name for dad, or the name that she gave was false. If you are looking for a biological parent, we will be more than happy to help you if you've tested the ancestry. This is a really incredible map to us. So when we first started, it was just five little group of friends of five. And now we've expanded to 99 volunteers. We are located all over the United States from coast to coast and border to border. We also have angels in Portugal and Chile, and we just expanded to take clients from the United Kingdom. Now, we also have angels and volunteers in the United Kingdom that specifically work those cases. So we did a little bit of breakdown here. Our 99 volunteers, of those 99 volunteers, we have 54 search angels. Every search angel is assigned a research assistant as well. So we have 27 research assistants. There's a difference between a search angel and a research assistant. A search angel focuses on what the science says. They focus on the DNA and how we triangulate that to create an answer. A research assistant's focus is finding obituaries, finding information on living people, helping us with expanding a tree and going through the leaf hints and ancestry. And then we do have 5 intake specialists currently. Our board is consistent. Oh my gosh, our board consists of 8 board members. And then we have other roles that are supporting roles here at DNA Angels, like our graphics person, people that don't work here every single day. So graphics, web design, things like that. And we do this for free because when I found out my dad was not my dad after testing Ancestry DNA, I called Ancestry. They said it would be $3,500 for 20 hours of research into who my dad was. And it would take about 3 or 4 months before they could even start my case. So I couldn't afford that. I was forced to learn if I wanted my answer. And I sincerely feel, and I think that everybody on our team feels, that you should not have to be financially privileged in order to know who your biological parent is. Now, that doesn't mean you cannot donate. We do ask for a donation, but if you can't do it, that's fine. It's a very stress-free ask. Along the way, it's been very important to us not just to be the person behind the science that solves a case. We understand the emotional impact of being an adoptee or a donor conceived person or an NPE. So we have created groups that fit each of those categories. So if you're an NPE or a donor conceived person, we have a group for you. If you're an adoptee, we have a group for you. If you're part of the birth family, like a first mom, we have a group for you. And then we also have a group for our DNA search and support for the UK that we just started. I am very proud to announce that we have written a book, and I say we because this was absolutely a labor of love. Everybody has a story to tell, and we want to be able to help guide them along the way of telling their story. But there is a chronological way that our stories happen to us. So what we've done is we've created a process journal, and in that process journal, we've given question prompts, beginning with "Tell me about your family before you knew of your DNA discovery or your conception story, all the way through the identification, the reunification, and then the healing process, because we do not just stop at the identification. There's a process even after reunion of continued healing and hope. And then chapter 5 or 6, I don't even remember. I think it's chapter 6 was written by Kate Penny Howard, who you'll hear from next. And that's just in retelling your story. So when you meet people on the street, you don't tell them all the guts of your story, right? We want to talk about what are you going to retell about your story. And this is available on Amazon for $34.95. Along the way in the book, you will find adult coloring pages because you need to take a break from processing everything when you're writing your story. So, what better way than to just sit down with an adult coloring page or a mandala and release your energy that way? Just find some peace. And it is it for my portion of the presentation. Jim did let you know that we have solved over 5,000 cases. So this year, I wanted to let you know that we are celebrating 5 years as a nonprofit and 5,000 cases solved, but we're already well on our way to 6,000. We serve a little over 100 clients a month on average, and they just keep coming. And I think that our success, excuse me, I'm stuttering, our success is because of the community partners that we choose to partner with. We make sure that we are friends with the stakeholders in our community, as we are also a stakeholder. So with that, let's tell you about the history, a little bit of the history of being an NPE or illegitimate or adoption. Miss Kate Penny Howard.
Okay. You should be able to see the PowerPoint on your screen. The biggest question that I hear from people who later in life find out that their parent or parents are not who they thought they were, the biggest question is why? Why didn't they tell me? Why did everybody else and my cousin know before I knew? And of course, I can't tell you what your parent was thinking, but I can give you some thoughts about how our society has shaped the way that people have reacted and responded to this situation. Until fairly recently, people were counseled to keep NPE secret. There was a burden of shame for couples who were counseled to keep there's a burden of shame for couples who suffered infertility. Adoption seemed like a good solution for them. Agencies tried to match children to parents physically, intellectually, and by religion. Adoptive parents were told that telling the child would cause trauma, and it was best to just not talk about it at all. The same was done for donor-conceived children. Donors were considered to be giving gametes, eggs and sperm, which were considered to be no different from spare parts. And you wouldn't tell the person buying your car 5 years from now that you had replaced a few nuts and bolts here and there, and doctors saw no reason to inform a child about that one little cell that became the foundation of who they were. And again, the shame of infertility and religious taboos against donor-assisted conception meant that couples were reluctant to tell anybody that they had sought fertility assistance. And sometimes the couple didn't actually know for sure because doctors often mixed material from the husband and the donor so that the couple had some plausible deniability. Because, maybe the sperm from the husband and the sperm from the donor buddied up so that the dad's sperm could get across the finish line. They believed that it didn't matter, that the ends justified the means, and that the parents had what they wanted, which was you, and all would be well. And then you have what we might refer to as a DIY fertility treatment with an uninformed donor, a woman who usually back in the day was married, takes fertility into her own hands and hooks up with a guy for the purpose of conceiving. And again, that plausible deniability is there because the BCF doesn't want to be identified as sterile. And I've even seen cases where this DIY fertility treatment with an uninformed donor was orchestrated by a husband who knew that he was sterile. So he shut the door, he averted his eyes because they had what they wanted and felt that ignorance was bliss. The same applied to accidental conception from an extramarital affair. Society tells us that you're not supposed to have an affair. So if a woman ended up pregnant due to an affair, she would take measures to ensure that everybody assumed that this child belonged to her husband. And as long as the child looked enough like her husband, nobody was the wiser. But what if the mother was not married when she conceived? In the mid-20th century, from the 40s through the passing of Roe versus Wade, an estimated 4 million newborn children were placed into legal adoption, peaking with almost 90,000 children in 1970 alone. Currently, only about 18,000 newborns are placed into adoption every year. So you can imagine how much more children were being put into adoption. And this time span is referred to as the baby scoop era. And it was a really interesting time because while the culture was opening up to premarital sex in the mid-20th century, it still strongly looked down upon unmarried women who got pregnant. That's why in the 60s, a quarter of the children born to married women who were teens or in their 20s, a quarter of these children who were born in the 60s were conceived before the parents were married, and their parents were married in what we call a shotgun marriage. And we know that a good number of these marriages were entered into by a BCF who knew that there was no way that he was the father of this child. And seeing as how we live in a culture which was shaped by a religion or several religions which have at their center a misattributed parentage, a man like this may be considered to be heroic. At the same time, people started to realize that there was a whole lot of money to be made in this adoption industry, more so if the child was white. Pregnant white women were sent to maternity homes, or if they couldn't afford it, were placed as servants. They were sent away from their hometown where they could give birth and recover undercover. In my own family, we have discovered such a story. Ella Mae was the daughter of a prominent family in a small county seat city on the Texas and Oklahoma border. In 1969, she became pregnant, and the father was a Cherokee man from Oklahoma. I have since talked to the birth father quite a bit. And when he initially denied that he was the birth father, he blamed his deceased brother. But then he called me back one day and told me that he had lied to me. And he told me that he was absolutely shocked that I had called him because he knew Ella Mae. And she was in college and significantly older than him. And he remembered her coming to him to let her know that she was pregnant. And she said that my parents say it's okay for us to get married. And he said, well, I can't get married until I graduate high school. And so she asked him for help with money for an illegal abortion. And he gave her the $500 that he had saved from mowing lawns until he was old enough to get a real job. And then I found a newspaper article explaining that Ella Mae was going to visit an aunt out of state in the place where this baby just happened to be born. We knew that this article was false. We knew that this article was a cover. We knew that Ella May had gone to a maternity home in that same city where she gave birth to a child who was placed into adoption. She went home and she never married. And I am absolutely sure that Ella May will try to take her secret to the grave. And Ella May makes me really angry. But I have to try to put myself in her shoes. What choice, what control did she have in 1969? These mothers were told they were bad, and the best they could do was surrender their child. This happened to 80% of unwed mothers during this era. And after the passing of Roe versus Wade, it became more common for single mothers to keep their child. However, often she didn't know who the father was, or if she did, she maybe didn't feel free to talk about it for whatever reason. So while I can't answer your why, I hope that this bit of history helps you better shape your own story as you step into your future. And now I'd like to turn it over to Amy.
Hello, everybody. I'm working on getting my screen pulled up really fast, and I think it's set to the last slide. Let me fix this. Can you see this? Is it still the last slide?
Yes, your thank you slide.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm new at this.
No worries.
Okay. I have it set. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to talk today about some of the tools that we use to solve our cases. One of the biggest questions that we get is, how are you using DNA to solve our cases? Like, how are you going from joining the DNA Angels client, going through the intake, us looking at the DNA, and then giving you a name identifying your birth parent in question? So there's so many different things that we do behind the scenes that you're unaware of. So you're coming to us and filling out a form. It may take us a couple of hours, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, however long it takes to solve your case. We're handing you a name, but you don't know what's going on that whole entire time. So I'm going to tell you kind of a little bit about that. So first thing first, the most important tool that we have in our tool belt is the DNA. And there's different types of DNA testing out there. So I want to kind of go over the different types of DNA testing. So the one that you guys are probably most familiar with is the autosomal DNA test, which is like Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, MyHeritage, or FTDNA. This is going to test both your maternal and paternal lines. So you're going to go up that tree with those DNA matches up both sides. That is going to look for close relatives that are closer to you within a 6 to 8 generation range from your closest relative back to 6 to 8 generations. This is the most budget-friendly part of the DNA testing that we're going to talk about. Usually, you can catch a sale for these like $59 or $69. Full price, you're looking at maybe $100. 23andMe is a little bit more expensive, but still it's budget-friendly compared to the other tests. So this is just a little graphic to kind of give you an idea that you're looking at your family tree and you're able to get DNA matches from everybody, from your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents on both sides of this family. And then we also have the Y-DNA. This DNA test is a test that only men can take. So if you're a female, you can't take this test. It's not going to give you anything. It's just going to void and you're not going to be able to do anything with it. So if you're a man, you're able to take this. And what this test is going to check is your male line. So your dad's line. And it's going to go back about 60,000 plus years in the past. So we're looking at more ancient DNA with the Y-DNA test. So this isn't really going to help you identify a birth parent. So one, you're only looking at your paternal line going way, way, way back, and it's going back 60,000 plus years. So think about how many generations back that is. When you're trying to identify a birth parent, you want something that's more closer in time than way back in time. So this doesn't really quite help. If you just want to know some surname origins or kind of see those kinds of things, then this would be great for you, but it won't help you identify a birth parent in our experience. This test is a little bit more expensive depending on which type of Y-DNA test that you get. You go through FTDNA to get this kind of test, and it's about $120 to $450 for this. And then I have a graphic. This kind of shows you how the women, you can't take this test, but the men can, and how you're only going to test your father's 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 line way back in time. Next is your mtDNA, which is your mitochondrial DNA. This is passed down from mother to child. So a mom can pass it to her daughter or her son. A son isn't going to pass this on, but that daughter will pass it on. And it's another ancient line of your mother's line way back in time, up to 150,000 years in time. That is insanely so far back. So just like with the Y-DNA, this isn't going to really help you identify a birth mother or a birth father line, because obviously it's matrilineal and not the paternal line. You are able to just get to that back, way back to the mom's side. So mom's mom, back up to 150,000 years ago. FTDNA also does this test, and this test is about $160. And again, here's another graphic where a mother can pass it on to her son or her daughter, and it's mom's line, and only a female can pass this on to her child. So some of the tools that we use, the Leeds method, 100% the first thing I'm going to do with any case that I'm going to take. It was developed by Dana Leeds in 2018. And in a sense, all this is doing is clustering your DNA matches who match each other, who have a common link with each other or a common ancestor, a most recent common ancestor. So you assign each one of those DNA match clusters a color. So you know everybody in this color is going to match everybody. So in this little picture, you see all those matches that are light blue. That's going to go to one common ancestor. The little green ones are going to go to one common ancestor, the yellow ones, the pink ones, and so forth. So they're all going to belong to one common ancestor line, and that's where we start. On Ancestry, you can do the Dana Leeds method without putting it in a spreadsheet. So you see those little colored dots. You're just going to click on a match at about 200 centimorgans, and we're going to talk about centimorgans in a second. You're going to go up to about 200 centimorgans, and you're going to assign that person one colored dot. Anybody that is related to that one person is going to get another colored dot. So you're going to have your first network right there. Everybody's going to match that one colored. Then you're going to go back to your DNA matches and find somebody around 200 centimorgans that does not have a dot. Another brand new, fresh DNA match that's not color coded yet. You're going to click that one, assign it a brand new color, and then you're going to do the same thing. Find those shared matches, assign them all that one color, and now you have two genetic DNA networks that belong to two different most recent common ancestors. And then once you start getting that, you're going to get a better picture of these DNA matches, who belongs where. You know, all of this one is going to belong to one side. All of this one's going to belong to another side. So that's where you're going to start. Centimorgan, CM for short. It's a unit of measurement to tell you how closely you are related to somebody. This is the most important piece to the puzzle of a DNA match, is the centimorgan match, to know how closely they're related to you. So if you have somebody that's a DNA match at like 3,500 centimorgans, that's a parent match, a parent-child match. If you have somebody that's around a 200 centimorgan, that's like right around a second-ish, third-ish cousin. So you can see that the higher the number, the more closely you are related to somebody. Here is a wonderful little graphic that we had put together where it kind of shows you the centimorgans in a column and what that relationship could be. Not only did we give you the CM, the centimorgan match to the left, we also gave you a percentage because 23andMe, they use a percentage to tell you how related you are to somebody instead of the centimorgans. You can find the centimorgans, but it primarily uses the percentages instead. So here you can see an average of 866 centimorgans is going to be a first cousin, which is also right around 12.5%. So on a DNA match, here's what I'm looking for when I'm looking at your case. And this is me and my cousin. So I'm looking at the centimorgans to see exactly how closely we're related. 520 centimorgans is a great match, really high match. It's amazing. Roughly a first cousin once removed-ish relationship. If I had to just guess off the top of my head, that's where my head immediately goes for a 520. So what I'm looking at is I've got her sorted with the colors. I've got all the shared matches with the colors for the Leeds method. And then I am going to try to figure out how I'm related to this person with the other DNA matches by looking at all of their family trees and see if I find a common name. Is there somebody in common with everybody that I'm matching Vicky with the shared matches? Can I identify a surname and go from there? Here is a little bit more about some of the resources that we use in our toolboxes. The Shared CM Project by Blaine Bettinger, that is on DNA Painter. The What Are the Odds tool on DNA Painter. Bin Verified, White Pages, any other public databases that I can get my hands on. Newspapers.com is a really, really good resource to find obituaries, or like Kate was saying, where she had found that little snippet where her family member had went away to go visit an auntie. So there's a lot of little puzzle pieces that we can put together by finding things on newspapers.com. Google is a huge resource. Most of our more recent obituaries are going to be on Google. If you have somebody that's in a professional field, they're going to be on Google when you Google them. There's just so many different things on Google that you can pull from somebody. FamilySearch.org, Ancestry.com, of course, and then there's a couple of new tools that are coming. Banyan, this tool I'm going to talk about in a second. This is brand new, and I'm super excited for this one. So the Shared CM Project, this is on DNAPainter.com. So this is going to kind of like the sheet that I showed you, the purple one with the centimorgans and what the relationships are. This is a similar one that you can use, and you're going to input the CM amount that you're matching or the percentage, and it's going to show you every single possible relationship for that match. So for here, for me and Vicky, this is everything that her and I could be matching at 520 centimorgans. All of these are within range. You're going to see, if you look at the first cousin, the 866 centimorgan, that's the average. But they've had recorded people as a first cousin at 396 all the way up to 1397. We don't kind of look at those outliers on the very, very edge because there could be issues. This is all user reported data. This is somebody just like me that went in there and inputted, hey, I have a first cousin at 396. That is probably statistically way too low. So I usually go by the average and kind of go from there. And there's other little tips and tricks that we use to kind of differentiate what a centimorgan match would be when it's on that outlier amount. This is What Are the Odds? This is one of my other favorite tools to use, and I use this for 99.9% of my cases. There's an update coming with this one too. But essentially right now, what's available is you enter the birth year of the person that is the person's DNA that you're using. So in my case, I was born in 1981. So that is there for me. My most recent common ancestor is the Shirley line for me in my 520 centimorgan match, Vicky. And the other matches are on there. And so what this tool is trying to do is take all of those DNA matches that you put in there for the relationships that you have proven. So I have proven all of these people belong in the tree this way, and it's going to formulate a hypothesis of what this tool believes me and Vicky are going to be related as. And here is where it shows the hypothesis, and I have hypothesis number 4 is the strongest that this tool has marked as the possibility where I belong in this tree. So we got Vicky up there. I was able to prove where she is, and where I'm going to go is on that hypothesis 4. And this tool actually got it correct. With all the DNA matches that I put in there, it formulated the correct hypothesis. The more DNA matches that you put into this tool to work with, the more accurate and as close as it's going to get. Just remember also, just because you have a higher hypothesis doesn't mean that one is true. Any of the hypotheses could be correct, and that's when you have to use your brain and the data that you have in front of you with the tree and the other things to formulate, yes, this one is correct over this one. This is the new update for this tool that is coming soon. So it's basically the same type of thing. You're going to input your most recent common ancestors, the DNA matches to that person. You're going to click the hypothesis button to generate the hypothesis. But the difference is I feel like this so far is geared more towards trying to identify a birth parent. It's going to ask you questions. Would you like to identify the biological mother or father of client's name? What year was this client born? It's going to have the DNA matches that you're going to put in there. So it's giving you more of a control of what you're looking for to put it in there. So I'm excited to try this. I haven't tried this out yet. It just got some of the information released recently. So we're still learning about this, and I cannot wait for it to go live to actually get my hands on it. Been verified, similar to white pages. So what this is doing is it's going to pull public data off of the person that you are searching for. And here I searched for this gentleman, and it gave me a roughly birth date for him. Everything but the actual date told me when he passed away. It gave me the state he passed away, where he was last known to live. It just gave me all kinds of information, and I can pull a PDF version of this to give to somebody with the personal information, contact information, their address, any relatives, social media, jobs, professional licenses that they had held, email addresses. It gives you so much information, but the biggest one that it gives us, not just the contact, but it gives us the family members' names. So we got another extra little tool that we can go and pull born family names from this person. So if I was trying to look for his son, but I couldn't find any records, I couldn't find a birth index, I can't find an obituary with kids listed, I can use this to find the relatives to see if I see somebody that has the same surname that's in the similar age of a child would be, that I can track down and try to verify who this person is and how he's related to Curtis. Newspapers. Again, like I said, it pulls up all kinds of information. And as you can kind of see from this little snippet, it's not just bringing up obituaries. It's bringing up any type of story that has this person's name in there. Granted, you have to verify that this person's name is the person that you're looking for and not somebody with the exact same name. But it's a good tool to look to kind of verify, hey, I want to make sure somebody was in Oklahoma at this time, and this is my person, and this is where the target area is for my family. So is this it? And it gives you extra information on that person. We're going to skip that one because that's not live anymore. Googling myself, you find all of these information. You find so much documents, pictures, different LinkedIn profiles, anything that had my name tied to something on the internet, anywhere is going to pull it. So if you want to Google John Smith from Louisville, Kentucky, you're going to pull up everything that has to do with a John Smith in Louisville, Kentucky. I tend to do the full names. I will do the full names with the location. I'll do a full name with just the birth year or the full name with the death year to see what I can pull up. Or sometimes I'll do the name and maybe a couple of the kids' names to see what pulls up. A lot of the more recent obituaries are going to be on here versus in a newspaper that's not digitized yet. So that's another clue to find somebody more recent. This is another new tool that is not live yet, that's coming soon. And they are going to a big announcement at RootsTech here in a couple of weeks, and I cannot wait. But this is the Banyan DNA project. And so it's similar to the tool that I was talking about with the hypothesis, trying to figure out where you belong in a tree in relation to those DNA matches. This is very similar to that, except for it's going to work well with pedigree, collapse, incest, and possibly even endogamy later on when they try to get everything worked out. This is going to be brand new, and it has not been released yet. I just have a couple little snippets that I stole from the website, but it's going to be super exciting for those more complicated, complex family lines. I think it's going to help with a lot of our communities in like Louisiana and our Jewish populations, and maybe our Jewish populations when they do the endogamy add on to this. North Carolina, I can see this working really well, and possibly even Puerto Rico. So there's a lot of communities where this is going to be super, super helpful for those difficult trees. And that is it for today. I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to Jennifer. Thank you all for having me.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm going to now hop onto the share screen. So we want this one. Can you all see my screen? Awesome. Okay. Now I just got to find 1 second. Go. Okay. All right. So yes, I'm Jennifer. I live in southern New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia. And I am now a genetic genealogist, but I was not at the time that I found out, some life-changing things. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. A disclaimer first, when I say dad, I'm talking about the man that raised me, who I've always known and loved as my father. And my biological father, I call my biological father. So I grew up with my mom and my dad. I've got 2 sisters, one older, one younger. Always knew that my older sister was a half sister because my father was previously married. And there was no secret there. So as far as I was concerned, she was my sister, but biologically, genetically, we knew that she was a half sister. But we would eat dinner at the tables together, and my parents would check our homework. We were really close knit family. We did the vacations, and we were kind of known as like the Brady Bunch. I'm very lucky to have the family that I grew up in that sense. So my older sister looks like her mother, and my younger sister looks like our mother. And I have lighter hair. It's gotten darker with age, but I've always had lighter hair, and I have blue eyes. And nobody else in my family has had blonde hair and blue eyes. Nobody. So everybody's kind of. I've always heard things, like you don't look like your sisters, you don't look like your father, you don't this, that, and I kind of just shrugged it off because my mom always said that I looked like her father, who passed away before I was born. I've only ever seen pictures of him in black and white, so all I could do was believe her, because if she say I look like you look like my dad, though, okay, I look like my grandfather. That was good enough for me. But, November 2017, raising my child, who's now, at that point in time, he was still a teenager. Life is good. Recreational DNA tests are becoming more and more popular. And this is embarrassing now, but back at the time, I believed that I was part Native American because my father was part Native American. And if you look at me now, it's pretty clear that I was misled. There's not a shred of Native American in me. But at that time, I was like, oh, I'm going to take a DNA test too and find out, what that actual percentage is. And, the outcome of that DNA test was that I am not. So my test came back and I had a lot of matches from my mom's side. I recognized my aunt and my cousin, and I was fine. And then nobody on my father's side. And I was told that my dad's sister took a test. So I called Ancestry and told them that they had messed up my test and they gave me back my mom's matches, but not my dad's. They gave me somebody else's dad's matches back. And I was like, can you guys just straighten this out and let me know when it's done? And they told me that the database updates all the time and just to hang in there. So I hung in there for years. I waited 3 years. And in that time, it just fell off the radar. It just did. And I went about my life. And then one day, one of my friends was like, oh, I just took a test and, look at my results. And I thought, I wonder if mine ever updated. And I went back in, and then I had a 500, I think it was like 520 centimorgan match, which is like either half first cousin or first cousin once removed, that I had no idea who this person was. And he lived a town over from me. And my dad's whole family is from Virginia. So it was really unsettling. And I was, kind of think confused is is a strong enough word. It was kind of like complete denial, right? I was so confused that I couldn't even let it be like what I was seeing, that it was like, again, something's just wrong, not thinking it's the story that I grew up with, but thinking it's something in the processing. So I called my sisters and they were like, I said, something's going on here. And my sisters said that they would take a test. And I told them that they didn't have to because things would update. And they were like, it's okay, we'll take a test. So they took a test, and my younger sister came back as my half sister, and my older sister did not come back as a match. And it dropped me to tears because, again, knowing she had a different mom, we didn't know we had different dads. So my earth cracked. But they're the best. My sisters really, they are the best. And they said, nothing changes. We are still sisters. Everything's going to be fine. We got you. So I'm kind of speeding through, sorry. All right, so here we go. So I was born in January of 79. This is my mom and dad's first date in April of 78. So if you're doing the math, you recognize, right, there were times going pretty quickly. And I thought maybe I was born early, but mom always said I was born late and we're trying to figure this out. So my sisters and I go away for the weekend. And I have a background in project management. My sister is a teacher. My other sister's a librarian. So we break out the flow charts and we're trying to figure out like, how do we talk to mom? How do we talk to dad? Does dad know? Does mom know? Am I a product of rape? Am I a product of an affair? If I come clean about my findings, am I going to break up my mom and dad, who even to this day are very, very much in love? So the amount of pressure and burden that I put on my own shoulders with discovering a secret that I was greatly impacted by and didn't create crumbled. It just crumbled me. And I was truly afraid of breaking up the family that I loved and had been a part of my whole life, and always dreamed of being able to carry on and create my own family with that type of dynamic. It was very, very scary. So I reached out to that top match, and he responded to me quickly and said, yep, let's figure this out. So he shared his tree with me. He shared his matches with me. I had no idea what I was doing. I exported all of his matches. This is how I figured this out. I exported all of his matches. I removed every female on the list. I was like, that's not my dad. And then I removed every man who was born before I was conceived. Or I'm sorry, who passed away before I would have been conceived, and said he can't be a candidate. And then, so like I'm down, my list is still like 300 men. And I start to sort them and look at, where did they live and this and that and the other thing. And I got to two brothers who were the right age, in the right place at the right time. And then I got a therapist, spent a lot of time talking to my therapist about what do I do. And one day I was done waiting. And I remember like it was yesterday, but it was a few years ago. I was in my kitchen making my meatballs, and I had the sauce was going, and I'm thinking, and I remember rolling the last meatball, putting it in the oven and shutting the oven door. And I walked over to my husband, grabbed his hands, and I said, you have to tell me that I'm strong and everything's going to be okay. And he did. And I said, I'm going to mom's, stir the sauce, don't wait up. And I walked right out the door. And it was just, I was done. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My mother will say that she knew when she opened the door that I was there to talk to her about what I had found out. She said she'd been waiting for it my entire life. And I remember asking her, why didn't you tell me? And she said she was afraid. She was afraid to tell me. I was either doing really good and she didn't want to ruin that. I was having a hard time and she didn't want to make it worse. I was too young, and it couldn't handle the news. I got older and it became irrelevant. So she never felt that there was a good time for her to break the news to me. So I said, do you know who he is? And she said, no, I don't know. And I said, okay, so I've got these two brothers who might be it. If I give you the names, can we see if one of these names is familiar? And she said, okay. So I gave her the two names and she was like, it's that one. And she knew they had dated. But the shame and the secrecy that Kate had mentioned while she was talking a little bit about the social stigmas, um, had made her just determined, um, to carry it to the grave. And my father and mother, when they met, he knew that she was pregnant with me, and they had decided to raise me as their baby. And back in 1979, when that decision was made, you wouldn't think that people are going to be doing DNA tests and that this information would come to light. So they just decided, this is our family and that's it. And I I feel that they made the decision out of love. And thankfully, I've been able to release the anger that I've had and move back into a place of empathy. I almost feel bad for her for carrying that grief and that shame for 45 years. I mean, that's a lot to carry. It's a lot to carry. So my bio father, right? I got a picture of him. And after all of those years of hearing you don't look like your family, there was somebody that it was just like, oh my God, I look like you. It, if you've never experienced it, you'll never understand it. And if you have, you understand how you can't explain that feeling of looking at someone and seeing your own eyes or your own features for the first time. So this is him, his high school graduation photo. And he lives, oh, I'll go back. Sorry. He lives about an hour from me. We haven't met. He sends me very, very thoughtful gifts. He has sent me his mother's favorite book. He has sent me his grandfather, my great grandfather's cufflinks and tie clip. He's sent me old family recipes. He talks to me about football and stuff like that. We text. It is all so very, very safe. And every time I've asked him 4 times, can I thank you in person? Like, can I take you out to your favorite restaurant just for a cup of coffee? I'm trying to be so low pressure. And he has never even acknowledged the question, and that it's always the response has just been, here's an interesting article about how the tunnels in New York City used to be used to transfer the mail, and it's like, I just asked you if you wanted to meet your daughter in person. And so, I have to respect his boundaries. I have to respect his boundaries. And I do. And I am grateful for the relationship that we have, in the state that it's in. I've seen many parents just welcome their child into their life. And I've also seen many parents say, no, thank you. Like, I placed you for adoption, or I didn't know your mother was pregnant with you, and my life has moved on, and good luck. So I've seen both ends of the spectrum, and I land right in the middle, and I'm okay. I'm okay with that. But that's where we are as of today. That's where we are, an hour away. I did meet my half brother, so that was nice. And then I'll just tell you a little bit again about when I talked to my mother and my father about finding this out. And my dad hugged me so tight. And he said what many of us like cringe over, that, oh, but he's still your dad. And it's like, no, 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 hold on a second. But there's this other person that I come from. But my dad said it doesn't, he said, we don't have to be blood to be family. And I'm still your dad. And he has claimed me as his from the first day that I was born until today. He has claimed me as his daughter, just as my two sisters, they are his children, and so am I. So I'll leave you quickly with some photos of my wonderful dad, he's just the best. And I'm about to do something awesome that sums him up. He's a riot. So that's a little bit about my story. I know we all kind of spoke a little fast, but we wanted to make sure that we left some time for you guys to ask some questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'd like to open the floor back up to anybody who has questions for Kate, Amy, Laura, or me, or anybody else in general. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, wow, Laura, Amy, Kate, Jennifer, wonderful, just wonderful. I am so appreciative of the work that you guys do. I am going to stop the recording right now, and then we will go ahead and let people raise their virtual hand or raise whatever they need to do